Well, hello, Motor City Comic Con. Greetings from the UK. My name is Martin Lakin. You may know me as Martin L. I run the website SUPERMANIA78.com. I've been graciously asked today by your hosts, Mr. Jim Bowers and Mr. Jay Towers, to talk to you briefly about Superman movie memorabilia collecting. Now, what a broad subject. My God, 40 years, the godfather of all superhero films. Everybody wants a piece of it, now more than ever. I can't blame you. I'm lucky enough to be in a very privileged position where I've managed to accumulate over a very long period of time a great deal of objects that are very dear to me. I'm going to share some of them with you today, but probably more pertinently, I'm going to talk you through how I managed to obtain these things and the importance of provenance when it comes to these kind of items. Because without the story of where they're from, they lack the kind of authenticity that's required. They lack the kind of charm that you would otherwise get from something. So everything I'm about to show you, some of the most precious things that I have, mainly it's print matter. There is very little in terms of, I don't own a costume, for example. God knows I wish I did. I don't own a huge array of props, but what I do own is very special. And I have worked very hard to try and accumulate a collection where the authenticity is unquestionable. And I will share with you exactly how I managed to do that and talk you through some of my most favourite pieces. I hope you enjoy it. So I wanted to start with something pretty significant from the collection. I call this the Big Red Book. No guesses as to why. And when I speak about authenticity, let's get straight into it, because this was found in a skip at Elstree Studios in 1988. Being discarded, thrown away, and somebody was smart enough to recover this piece. It is hundreds of pages deep, and it consists of the script for Superman 4 plus the storyboards. It is the entire story of the film. Now, I managed to get this. This is only 10 or so years ago, and I got it for a steal. I think I got it for about £50 or something like that, because luckily enough, it's one of these things where the owner didn't particularly know what he had. Now, this is one of the things that I have to share with you in terms of obtaining this kind of thing, because sellers, they don't, some of this stuff has been sat in drawers for 25, 30 years, and they just want it gone, and they don't realize the cosmic significance of such a thing, whereas us as fans, we're all over it. So you have to be quick. You have to ask the question. Now, my ultimate tip for you when it comes to this kind of thing is, when you see a lot listed on an auction site or through a friend or through anything else, you contact the seller and the question you ask is, what else you got? Because you will be amazed at something that they never thought, considered even selling, putting online, trading, anything like that. It's just been sat there. Ask the question. You'll be amazed what happens. Now, when I talk about provenance, this is exactly the kind of thing I mean. This is such a rare item. This is a table plan for the supper party for the premiere of Superman the movie. Now, inscribed across the top in blue marker, the unmistakable autograph of the man himself. The provenance, however, isn't from the autograph. It's from the fact that these table plans were only available on the evening of the event itself. I have never, ever seen another one of these. Here's the layout on the night. Chris and his girlfriend Gay were sat on table 14, adjacent to the dance floor. So something like this, if you manage to get hold of it, you know, the provenance is perfect, really, because where else would you get another one of these? It just wouldn't happen. I mean, they're not given out. They weren't widely distributed. You can only get one if you were lucky enough to attend on the night. And I forget how much I paid for this, but this is going back 5, 6, 7 years. But it wasn't something like this today. I mean, my God, £500 at least. Because, again, the provenance, the autograph, the fact that it's complete, a fabulous piece. So let's talk about autographs. Now, can you believe we live in an age where autographs in the Superman films have their own Facebook page? And indeed, if you go to Superman movie autograph collectors, you will see examples such as this. This is the very first one that I managed to obtain. I've had this 20 years or more. This came from a fella that worked on set called Mark. As you can see, it's dedicated to him. Quite why he wanted to part with it, I don't know, and I don't care, because I adore this. This is one of the best examples I've still to date ever seen. Just to point out some of the quirks of Chris's handwriting, the Y in the yours, the loop of the C, and the lack of loop on the R in Reeve is notable, because he was quite careful to throw that loop in on every other example. This is on a vintage 10x8 still, black and white. Common as far as image is concerned, but uncommon as far as the blue marker used on it to make the dedication so precious. And here is another example. Now, this is one I've very recently obtained, and this was actually won in a competition at a convention before Superman the movie came out. So this is 77. Christopher Reeve was not yet famous, having only done one picture. And again, notice the variation in the autograph here. This is written in blue biro in ink. You probably can't see from the shot, but because of the glossy surface of the 10x8, the pen has had a hard time across this. But notice the loops of the C, of the R for Reeve. And Chris seemed to go through a phase where he crossed through his H's and he crossed his T's through both loops. That's a very good tell for an early example. So this is a really good example of what we now call the stacked signature, done in haste, I guess you would say. This is actually a page from a vintage Starlog magazine from about 1981, I believe. The image is from 78, however, one of the earliest photos of Chris in costume, one of my favourites, fantastic. Wonderful size. Use my hand for scale, but you can see that that's just been thrown rapidly across in blue marker. All of the tells are there, the loop on the C, the loop on the R, dash straight through at the top. And again, this was something I managed to pick up from your favourite auction site for not nearly as much as I think it would be worth today. And so there we go again. All you've got to do is look, ask the question, and get that provenance. But I think this, I can't remember where actually this was obtained, but nonetheless, superb example. So the last example of Chris's autograph I have to show you is this fantastic example here. Now, a word again about condition, because obviously anything that bears Chris's genuine signature is going to be a vintage item. So what we're looking at is a publicity still that has seen better days. Creases, fading, etc., etc. But this all contributes to the fact that we know that this is older and therefore unquestionably real. Now, if you look at the way at the top there, the way that Chris renders the letter S, we're going to come back to that later for something pretty special I'm going to show you in a little bit. But for right now, this was gifted to somebody that worked on the set as a present for his daughter, Sandra. And as you can see, typical Chris in charming mode. Sandra, Superman sends love. Me too, Christopher Reeve. And notice again how we're crossing through both loops. Very early example. And again, on a vintage 10x8 publicity still, black and white. Superb. Now you may recognize these as street signs from the miniature set of Superman 2. These were actually given to me, would you believe, by a very good friend of mine named Steve Camden. Steve was on set back in 1979, and I think he actually delivered post, would you believe. He met Christopher Reeve on several occasions, delivered him his correspondence from the States, and somehow managed to obtain these when the sets were broken down. They are nothing more than cardboard. Bearing in mind this was like in the late 70s, this probably would have been quite difficult to do. I don't think there's no such thing as a colour photocopier, so I don't know what process would have been used to make these, but they are very intricate. Any mistakes have been painted out, and they would have been mounted to various poles on set. So completely unique. I have seen one or two of these out there. They command silly prices these days, but nevertheless, they are a superb little piece of cinematic history. So one of the earliest and possibly most significant pieces that I own is this script for Superman 2 that still has director Richard Donner attached and is a 1977 draft. This copy belonged to the illustrator Reg Hill. He's listed in the credits. And this is a complete script with some annotations, possibly to aid Reg in his endeavours on the film. But something like this, scripts seem to be stratospheric at the moment in terms of value. There's very little to them. I mean, they're hardly aesthetically the nicest things you'll ever see, but they are nonetheless production used, production made, so very simple, so elegant, I expect. But they command, if you look back on various auctions such as Prop Store and the like, these fetch incredible sums. And I really like the fact that this is a Superman 2 script with Richard Donner's name still attached. I don't know how many of those are out there. As we all know, it didn't end up that way, unfortunately, but nonetheless, this signifies that indeed his version that we all got to see eventually on DVD did exist. Pretty significant stuff. Now, speaking of sequels, one of my absolute favourite items is this. Now, again, provenance, here we go again. This is another, I guess you'd call it a skip find. Even though this is a promotional piece that was, it was in a copy of Variety in 1988 in black and white. This colour version is pretty unique and actually hung in the Canon offices of Elstree Studios and was recovered from the scrap pile when those offices were refurbished. In fact, I think they were demolished and this was recovered from that. There was this, and there was an accompanying Masters of the Universe Part 2 mini poster, I guess you would call it. And yes, this is the proposed Superman 5 film that Canon were in pre-production, according to this, on. This is really special to me because this represents the future of the movie series that, yes, didn't happen, but so close. I mean, in the intervening years, so much information has come to light about the fact that Superman 5, as it was, or Superman the New Movie, or Superman Reborn, so very nearly came to light. And at this stage, Christopher Reeve was still attached, even more so when it came to the Sorkin's buyback of the property. So this is incredibly rare. I have never seen another one of these. Any version of this that you see on the internet probably came from my original scan, is how rare it is. Especially in colour. The red Canon logo across the top is the hallmark, if you like. Everything else in black and white has been taken from the Variety poster. So this, I think, is the only one that exists. Very special, terrific provenance, awesome piece. What would it be worth? I mean, who knows? I mean, to me, it's priceless, but again, depending on whichever interested party, you're looking at a decent return on a piece like this. So it would be something to look out for in future. So if you've ever visited my website, supermania78.com, you'll be very well aware of the fact that I champion the last film in the Superman series, Superman 4. Now, folks, I saw the same film that you did. I make no apologies for this, but it does to me represent a nostalgic time when I was 13 years old and Superman flew across the screen for what would be the last time, and is very special. as a consequence of which I am kind of regarded as the champion of Superman 4 in terms of collecting. One of my favourite pieces is this. Now, this doubled up in the film as Lacey Warfield's number plate on her car, seen clearly in the Blu-ray, and also meets a terrible fate with one of Nuclear Man's fireballs, "Destroy Superman now," being pasted on the front of a white sedan, which explodes, and it still bears the residue of the fire and the destruction caused by that scene. This was obtained by a friend named Alexei Lambley-Steele. He'll be a name familiar in the Superman community as, just like me, somebody that has been rounding this kind of thing up for some time now. And Alexei managed to obtain this in a job lot, so there are several of these, as well as other pieces of the taxi cabs and such like from the film. But it just goes to show that once the inquiry is made, I think Alexei only went in for one plate and ended up with several, as I say. Once you pursue it, once you get the response from your mail saying, "Oh, well, actually, my uncle worked on Superman 4 as a plasterer or something," and then you follow that inquiry up with, "Oh, really? Did he keep anything? Is there a story to it? What can you tell me?" It all starts to come to you. Believe me, I've done it several times, and that's how we ended up with significant pieces such as this. You know, on a lot of occasions I get asked, what's your favourite piece of Superman memorabilia? What's the absolute top notch when it comes to your collection? And it's a hard question. Anybody that has been collecting for as long as I have, for as long as I'm sure you folks have, it's like choosing between children. You can't necessarily do it right off the top of your head. However, there is something that always sticks out, always just quite hoists over the top. And for me, it's a very recent acquisition, something I never thought I'd get to own. I'm very lucky to own it. And it is a humble piece of paper. Now, here we go with provenance again, folks. If you can see the detail on this letter, you will notice that it is in fact merely a piece of correspondence about a fitted kitchen. It's pathetic. However, once you see who it's addressed to, Mr. Christopher Reeve, the content of the letter isn't important. However, the handwritten annotations, John Williams' phone number, for example, they're pretty significant, wouldn't you say? So, at this stage, well, really, who cares? I mean, so somebody scribbled on a letter, big deal. But then, I mean, it is John Williams, master composer. Everybody knows him. And then we've got this business down here. What's that? Sid Shiner? Couldn't be Sid Shiner, the entertainment lawyer, could it? Where are you? I mean, bizarre. Now, if you remember, when we were talking about autographs briefly before, I asked you to remember the particular curve of the S. Well, if we flip this over for just one moment, we'll be seeing a lot of that. And yes, what you're looking at is handwritten lines from the script of Superman 4 in Christopher Reeve's very own hand. So the story behind this, if you look, the Y's and the S. In fountain pen, folks, this is the real deal. So the provenance, the story behind this, is this was recovered, again, another bin find. There's a real theme occurring here, isn't there? I'm not a skip diver or anything, it's just that this just seems to be the track of things, is that they're just recovered. And this was recovered from a bin from the Milton Keynes Post House Hotel, where Chris was staying. And again, sat in a drawer for 30 years. A relation of the person that obtained this, shall we say, realised it might be of interest to somebody, and it sold for a very, very reasonable amount back then. Not that far back then, I think it was only about 5 or 6 years. And since then, I've endeavoured to acquire it, just managed, and it has just gone straight in as my favourite ever piece, simply because of the intimacy of the thing. I mean, talk about unique. If you just look at what's also cute about it as well is the fact that every line that he's written here actually makes it into the final film. So to everybody at Motor City, thank you for watching. I hope this has been of interest for you. Quite a quirky selection of toys, I admit. I'd like to thank Mr. Towers, for the opportunity to present some of this to you. I'm still very flattered by the fact that Mr. Towers uses me as kind of a gauge to judge his own obsessions by. And I really think he should look at himself when it comes to significant collections. But thank you anyhow. If you're there, the wonderful Jack O'Halloran and Sarah Douglas are there. They are the sweetest people. Go and say hello. I've met them on several occasions along with Terence Stamp. They are wonderful people, and they, to this day, are as their enthusiasm for this whole endeavour is as infectious as your own. Go speak to them. Go get their autograph. They are wonderful people. You won't regret it. As for me, I wouldn't be me without leaving here without giving you a surprise, and I do have one. Only today, only this very day, I have come across a set of images that have been stored away for over 30 years. They are from the set of Superman 4. A gentleman named Graham Bedford I managed to get in touch with, who was sat back in the day in 1986 in his office in Milton Keynes, and as he was sat there, Superman flew past him, and so he dashed out with his camera and took some shots. And what you're about to see is a sequence of photographs of Christopher Reeve being hooked into his flying harness and taken off for the concluding shot of the arrival outside of the UN. Now, if you look at these photographs as they are, you'll see that Chris is hooked up to his crane. Talk about pre-CGI. I mean, in the Avengers, and fabulous as they are in modern cinema these days, you would not get your leading actor to be hoisted up by his loins 250 feet into the air on a Chapman crane in the freezing cold in UK weather in 1986. But nevertheless, there he is being dangled, waiting for action to be called so he can glide in to shot. Now, I'd like you to pay attention to this particular shot, because if you look at the crew surrounding Chris as he's hooked into his harness, you'll notice on Chris's, let's see, his left-hand side. No, Chris's right-hand side. Anyway, there's a guy stood next to him in a black jacket. That is a Superman 4 crew jacket. Only given out to members of the set. There were 3 different variations of colour. There was a red, there was a navy blue, and there was a black. The black one, as far as I know, was only given to Chris's stunt doubles, and Mark Stewart, I believe, is the only person to wear it. And you will find that it's what I've been wearing for the entire presentation. It's the same jacket, folks. I'm the lucky owner of Mark Stewart's crew jacket. As you can see, where are we? Stunt team. Only his bears the S on the shoulder. So again, something to finish on. Hope you enjoyed it. God bless you all. Long live the Superman movies. Take care.